Welcome to the Hotelligence Podcast, your strategic vantage point on the changing landscape of hotel safety. Hosted by Jim Quartz, a retired FBI DHS investigator, and Don Carr, a former frontline security owner-operator with years of firsthand incident response experience on hotel properties. Every episode brings you closer to understanding the full picture and what the future may hold. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Hotelligence Podcast. Today we're talking about infrastructure without authority, episode 4. I'm Don, and I've spent years responding to incidents inside hotels across markets and brands. And one of the most consistent misunderstandings I ran into was the idea that hotels are simply places where crime happens occasionally. That framing misses something much bigger.
I'm Jim, and I spent years in federal law enforcement. So environments shape behavior, and certain places aren't just locations. They become part of how activity moves, scales, and repeats. So today, we're talking about how hotels, by design, function as infrastructure, not intentionally, but structurally.
This episode is not about blaming hotels.
It's about understanding why hotels are so often used as part of broader activity patterns. So what infrastructure actually means? When we say infrastructure, we're not talking about intent. We're talking about properties. Infrastructure is anything that reliably provides access, anonymity, consistency, and short-term use without long-term attachment. Hotels check all of those boxes.
Hotels are designed to be neutral spaces. People come and go constantly. Privacy is expected. Transactions are brief. Oversight is intentionally light. And none of that is a flaw. It's the business model. But those same characteristics also make hotels highly usable environments for activity that benefits from low friction and low persistence. So neutrality as a system feature, when we talk about that, we talk about how neutrality is one of the most misunderstood concepts in hospitality. Staff are trained to treat guests evenly, avoid assumptions, and focus on service. That consistency is what makes hotels work at scale.
From a systems perspective, neutrality removes judgment from the environment. That's good for guests, but it also means the environment doesn't naturally resist misuse. It doesn't escalate. It doesn't question intent. It simply functions.
Well said, Jim. And when you combine neutrality with high turnover and constant movement, you get a space that can be used briefly, repeatedly, and without long-term memory.
So let's talk about how rooms are temporary, disposable space. One of the reasons hotels are so frequently misused is that rooms are temporary by design. They are rented for hours or days, not months or years. Once someone checks out, that connection ends.
And that disposability matters. Activity doesn't need to settle. It doesn't need to leave roots. If something feels exposed, the space can be abandoned and replaced easily.
From an infrastructure standpoint, that makes hotels flexible, low-commitment environments. And flexibility is valuable to any activity that wants to avoid being permanent.
So why patterns don't form locally, that's another key factor, is that hotels operate as individual properties. Each location sees only what happens within its own walls. Context doesn't naturally travel beyond that.
There's no built-in way for one hotel to see what another hotel has observed. Systems aren't designed to connect activity across locations, brands, or sectors.
That's right, Jim. So incidents look isolated. Each observation exists on its own. Even when something feels familiar, there's no safe mechanism to confirm whether it's part of something larger.
That fragmentation isn't accidental. It's a result of legal, privacy, and liability constraints layered on top of the business model. So why detection isn't the point? People often ask why hotels don't detect these patterns. The answer is that hotels were never designed to. Detection implies analysis, thresholds, and judgment over time.
Correct. Hotel systems are built for operations, reservations, billing, housekeeping, maintenance. Incident notes exist to document moments, not to create long-term insight.
And expecting those tools to behave like analytical systems misunderstands their purpose. They do exactly what they're built to do and nothing more.
And that brings us to low friction and high repeatability. When you combine neutrality, disposability, and fragmentation, you get an environment that's easy to use repeatedly without accumulating history.
There's no lasting footprint, no centralized memory, no natural resistance.
And that doesn't mean hotels enable misuse. It means they don't interrupt it by default.
And that distinction matters. Infrastructure doesn't choose how it's used. It simply allows use.
So why this is a system problem and not a people problem. And it's important to say this clearly. Frontline staff aren't missing something. Management isn't ignoring something. And owners aren't turning a blind eye.
Right. They're operating inside systems that prioritize neutrality, privacy, and consistency because that's what hospitality requires to function.
And when misuse occurs, it's exploiting system characteristics, not human failure.
Blaming individuals for outcomes created by design constraints doesn't solve anything. So what's the real takeaway? Hotels function as infrastructure because they're designed to be accessible, temporary, and neutral. Those qualities serve guests extremely well.
But they also explain why certain kinds of activity repeatedly intersect with hotel environments.
Understanding that reality is the first step toward any meaningful conversation about change.
Not by asking hotels to be something they're not, but by recognizing what the system actually is. So in closing, when we talk about hotels being used as infrastructure, we're not talking about failure. We're talking about design. Natural spaces behave neutrally.
And I think until that's understood, we'll just keep asking the wrong questions and expecting the wrong fixes.
So in the next episode, we're going to talk about why training alone doesn't solve these issues, even when everyone involved has the best intentions.
Because systems don't change through awareness alone.
And remember, we're in this together.
And together, we make hospitality stronger.
We publish a short, written insider briefing alongside each episode. It goes out on Wednesdays when the episode drops. If that's useful, the link is in the show notes.
Thank you for joining the Hotelligence Podcast, where experience informs smarter, safer hotel operations and prepares you for what comes next. Stay informed, stay confident, and stay connected. As the conversation evolves, Jim Cords and Don Carr will highlight developments that help hotels strengthen their approach to safety and risk management. See you next episode.